Court grants Sarah permission to compel Fashola to name corrupt contractors. Trade Union Congress says new minimum wage already eroded by inflation. In international news, Venezuela set up burning barricades over lack of power and water. And in sport, Nigeria's Oduayo Adekuroye is best female wrestler at the 2019 Africa Senior Wrestling Championships.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, says the Lagos Federal High Court has granted it the go-ahead in its lawsuit seeking to compel Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, to disclose the names of corrupt contractors. In the lawsuit, SERAP is asking the court to compel Fashola to provide specific details on the names and whereabouts of the contractors who collected public funds for electricity projects but disappeared with the money without executing any project. They want an exhaustive list dating back to 1999. The minister wrote to SERAP in March and promised to refer their requests to the appropriate ministries' agencies for necessary action. He had told SERAP in February, saying his ministry did not hold such information in its records. But SERAP rejected that response and cited the Freedom of Information Act that requires that government information held by any public institution or agency should be available to the public. The court also ruled that Fashola is put on notice. The case was adjourned for 2 weeks. Lawyers for suspended Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Walter Onohe, are getting worried about the delay by the Court of Appeal to deliver its judgment in the appeals filed in the Assets Declaration case against Onohe at the Code of Conduct Tribunal. The appeals were heard by a 3-man bench of the court at the end of February. It has also reserved judgments and said it will let the parties know the judgment date. But the lawyers have heard nothing. The court has up to 3 months to declare judgment, so it is still within the legal schedule. Onohe's lead defense counsel has expressed disappointment over the delay, telling a leading national daily newspaper it is a case that affects the judiciary, but things have slowed down at the Court of Appeal. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has reacted to a news report that it plans to probe Ogun State Governor Ibukule Amosun, Imo State Governor Rochester Okorocha, and for State Governor Abdulaziz Yari once their immunity ends. EFCC Head of Media and Publicity, Tony Orilade, has released a statement on Sunday night debunking the story. He said it was a figment of the imagination of the reporter. He said no team was being set up to probe the 3 governors. Orilade says the story should be disregarded. The new national minimum wage of 30,000 naira is not even kicked in yet. But the Trade Union Congress says inflation has seriously affected the purchasing power of the new figure. UC President Comrade Boboika Gama says although organized labor is appreciative of the approval of the new wage, increase in prices of commodities has wiped out his effectiveness even as workers are yet to begin receiving the new minimum wage. He said the figure would be inadequate for a family of 5 and because of Africa's extended family system. He has appealed to the 9th Assembly to persuade governors to pay workers' salaries and pensions regularly. The leadership of the National Association of Nigerian Students has rejected what it calls anti-poor and anti-masses recruitment requirements of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC. NAN's National Public Relations Officer, Adeyemi Aziz, made the group's position known in a statement released in Abuja on Sunday. Aziz says Nigeria's education sector has suffered from in-season strike actions to drag out and sometimes doubling the number of years required to obtain a degree. He said NNPC's requirements are a deliberate attempt to disenfranchise most of those it calls a rare-land qualified Nigerian graduates. He has given NNPC a 72-hour ultimatum to withdraw an alleged anti-poor and anti-masses condition in its employment practices. If NNPC fails to comply, as it says, NANS will hold a massive protest to shut down NNPC's activity. The Nigerian Air Force is not happy about a video recording and some photographs that has surfaced showing some military personnel flogging and physically assaulting suspected bandits by some military personnel. Air Force spokesman Air Commodore Ibikunle Daramola has released a statement in Abuja on Sunday condemning the action as totally unacceptable and not in consonance with the standing operating procedure guiding the conduct of the operation. He said the Air Force has zero tolerance for such human rights violations and has since initiated appropriate action to address the issue. Daramola said a board of inquiry has been set up to determine the remote and immediate causes of the incident. Its aim is to ensure appropriate disciplinary action was taken against all force personnel found culpable. Coming up, African stories, Algerian presidency sacks many ministers, puts in place caretaker government. And later, international news, Venezuelans burn barricades over lack of power and water.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and African Stories. Algerian presidency is reported to have relieved many ministers of their duties. Private Naha TV reported on Sunday that a new cabinet will be a caretaker government with Nuruddin Boudoue remaining as prime minister. Boudoue was appointed premier earlier in March after his predecessor Ahmed Ouayaye resigned following President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's decision not to run for a fifth term in the face of mass demonstrations. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says is hopeful for a solution to the 8-year-long conflict in Libya. The UN said this after a high-level meeting over the weekend in Tunis, the Tunisian capital, with officials from the Arab League, the European Union and the African Union. That group is known as the Libya Quartet. The UN boss said the meeting has led to intensified forms of cooperation among the four organizations to work more and more together in support of a Libyan-led political process. Citing the recent peace deals between Ethiopia and Eritrea in South Sudan and in the Central African Republic, Guterres said there is a wind of hope not only in Libya. Sudan's automatic teller machines have dispensed no cash in some time. As the country's cash shortage worsens, some residents have reported no access to cash in more than 3 weeks. They say bank officials told them the Central Bank of Sudan has not provided cash to feed the ATMs. Again, foreign currency prices have risen against the Sudanese pound, and traders expect a continued rise in dollar prices in the coming days. They say this is as a result of increasing import for the need of the holy month of Ramadan that begins in May. President al-Bashir issued emergency orders last week forbidding storage and speculation of the national currency. Health workers in a part of the country have gone on strike for non-payment of their full salaries. They say the government has been paying them half of their salaries for more than 6 months. 3 Africans have died and 50 others sought shelter at a police station in Durban, South Africa last week, where more than 100 persons attacked foreigners and small foreign-owned shops, looting and burning buildings. The attacks targeted mostly Malawians. The Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Lindiwe Sisulu, has expressed serious concern about the current spate of violence against foreign nationals and damage to their properties in KwaZulu-Natal. Sisulu has called an urgent meeting with African ambassadors to discuss the matter. She has also called on law enforcement officers to exert the full force of the law on criminals and those damaging properties. The minister said the African continent had contributed and sacrificed a lot for South Africans to be free and be liberated from apartheid. Xenophobia against African migrants is commonplace in South Africa, where local black population claims African migrants take jobs away from them. Unemployment in South Africa is at 27%. U.S. former ambassador to the United Nations, Andrew Young, says there is no justification for the continued imposition of sanctions on Zimbabwe by Washington. Young, who was recently in the country, pledged to play a part in calling for a review of the economic embargo. Andrew Young, a renowned civil rights activist and one-time aide to Martin Luther King Jr., was leading a 38-member business delegation from the U.S. to scout for investment opportunities in the country. Young highlighted the need to mend bilateral relations between Harare and Washington to facilitate investment. Special Advisor to Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Ambassador Stuart Kamikaj, says the political and economic reforms under the Mnangagwa government justify removal of the sanctions. Pope Francis has told Catholic faithful in Morocco on Sunday that showing the country's Muslim majority be a part of the same human family will help stamp out extremism. On his second and final day in Morocco, the Pope told Catholic priests and sisters that even though they are few in number, they should not seek to convert others to Christianity, but rather engage in dialogue and charity. After reaching out on Saturday to Morocco's Sunni majority, Pope Francis turned his attention on Sunday to the country's Christian minority. He celebrated a mass for at least 10,000 persons representing 60 countries. Many of them were sub-Saharan African migrants and other foreigners. When we return, international news. Venezuela sets up burning barricades over lack of power, water. And later, sport. Nigeria's Oduayo Adekunroye is best female wrestler at the 2019 African Senior Wrestling Championships.
You are watching ANN.
Looking for some Disney magic but don't know where to find it? We've got a magical solution just for you. Simply go to DisneyNigeria.mobi and get an exciting selection of games, short videos, wallpapers, shareables, and more. Explore a whole new world of Disney on your mobile, tablet, or PC. For just 200 Naira monthly, you get to enjoy the fun to infinity and beyond. SMS Disney to 11006 to begin. Terms and conditions apply. This service is only available to MTN customers.
Welcome back. This is in a news in global events. Southern Nepal has been hit with a deadly storm that has claimed 25 lives and injured more than 100. The storm swept through villages in the farming region of Bara and Pasa districts in southern Nepal, about 120 kilometers south of capital Kathmandu. Police official Sanoram Batharai says people were crushed by falling walls of their own homes and other debris. Batharai say police officers and soldiers from neighboring areas have reached the district on Monday. Rescuers are struggling to reach the villages. Angry Venezuelans have set up burning barricades near the presidential palace in Caracas and in other parts of the country on Sunday to protest against constant power outages and lack of drinking water in the wake of two major blackouts this month. Protesters, some carrying rocks in their faces, covered burned tires and tree trunks along a stretch of downtown Caracas as they demanded President Nicolas Maduro improve the situation. Maduro has announced a 30-day plan to ration electricity after nationwide power cuts that have inflicted misery on millions of people and ignited protests, including one near the presidential palace in Caracas. Maduro says the rationing plan will help deal with the outages that have also cut off the water supply and communications for days. At the time, Maduro blamed the blackouts on a terrorist attack against the electricity system by Washington and the pushed-its opposition. But the opposition has attributed the power outages to a lack of investment in a national grid, poor upkeep, and a failure to tackle repairs. Parliament will again try on Monday to take control of Britain's departure from the European Union, with some lawmakers hoping to force Prime Minister Theresa May to drop her Brexit strategy and pursue close economic ties with the bloc. May's deal has been defeated by lawmakers 3 times, even after she promised to step down if it passed. She was further dented when her own parliamentary enforcer said a softer Brexit was inevitable. 3 days after the date on which Britain was originally due to leave the EU, it was still uncertain how, when, or even if the United Kingdom would ever say goodbye to the bloc it first joined 46 years ago. Parliament will vote on different Brexit options on Monday, possibly showing a majority backing for a customs union, and then May could try one last roll of the dice by bringing her deal back to a vote in Parliament as soon as Wednesday. A Vietnamese woman accused of using a deadly nerve agent to assassinate the half-brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has accepted a plea deal for a lesser charge of causing hurt by a dangerous weapon. Malaysian prosecutors offered on Monday to reduce the murder charge against Duan Thi Huang, who is the only suspect still behind bars following the release of a co-accused last month. The judge sentenced Huang to 3 years and 4 months to be served starting from her date of arrest in February 2017. But Huang's lawyer said he expected she could be released as early as May this year. As sentences in Malaysia are automatically reduced by a third, Huang was one of 2 women charged over the February 2017 murder of Kim Jong-nam, an offense punishable by hanging. Last month, Malaysian prosecutors rejected an appeal to drop the charge against Huang and did not reveal why they had let co-accused Indonesian national Siti Aisyah go free while keeping Huang in custody. New Zealand says it will crack down on firearms ownership this week after the Christchurch Mosque massacre that killed 50 persons. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern's government announced an immediate ban on military-style semi-automatic rifles after the shooting and will put laws to Parliament on Tuesday to formalize its action. Finalizing such legislation can often take months, but Ardern said the matter was so urgent it could be done before the middle of this month. Ardern says the decision is in the national interest, safety, and to prevent an act of terror from ever happening in the country again. One of New Zealand's largest gun retailers, Hunting and Fishing, voluntarily stopped selling military-style semi-automatic rifles and halted online firearms sales. The suspect self-confessed white Brenton Tarrant is expected to appear in court on Friday. He is expected to face more charges of murder during the hearing in which he is set to represent himself. Still ahead, sport. Nigeria's Adekuroye is best female wrestler at the 2019 Africa Senior Wrestling Championships. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby. We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward. Wait, stop. You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down, keep walking to the left. Yes. You're almost here. Keep going. You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is ZN News. In sport, Nigeria's Odunayo Adekuroye has been named the best female wrestler at the 2019 Africa Senior Wrestling Championships in Tunisia. The award follows her impressive showing on the way to successfully defending a gold medal she won a year ago in Port Harcourt. The 2017 World Silver medalist and back-to-back Commonwealth champion made light work of a Cameroonian opponent, Asombi Tiako, winning the 57 kg final in just 29 seconds via pinfall for her 5th African title. Raja Casablanca of Morocco won the African Super Cup on Friday, narrowly beating Tunisia's Esperance 2-1 to lift the trophy for the second time. Goals from Abdelila Afidi, a superb first-half strike from 20 yards, and a neat close range finish from captain Badio Benoin in the 65th minute sealed victory for the Raja. That is the end of news this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.